Hi there everyone, Tim here from Active Podiatry. Hope you're all well. Welcome to the second video in the short series of videos about calf muscle injury. Now, in the first video, if you haven't watched it, we looked at the function of the calf muscles themselves, and secondly, some of the causes and the risk factors for injury to the calf muscle amongst runners and active people. So I'd encourage you to go and have a look at that if you haven't already before you watch this video. So in this video, what I'm going to look at really is some of the symptoms of calf muscle injury. How do you know if you've got a calf strain, and what are the sorts of things that you can do initially to sort of reduce the damage and to try and sort of get back to running and fitness again. So those are the two things that we're going to look at in this short video. So let me just grab Freddie the foot again, because he's going to help me to explain things. Always good to have a visual aid. So what are the symptoms? How do you know if you've got a calf muscle injury? What are some of the other possibilities that might that give you the same sort of sensations? We'll talk a little bit about those as well, because that's important. Now generally with a muscle injury, certainly with a calf muscle, you're going to feel it while you're out on a run. So you're going to be out on a run, and you may feel just some tightness in one of the calf muscles, the left or the right. I'm not talking about the general sort of tightness you'll get after a run, but a sort of a progressive sensation of tightness in the back of the leg, just below the knee. Now that tightness might sort of progress to a bit of a cramping sensation or a bit of an ache. And in more sort of severe cases, it's often been described, if you have a sort of a major tear of the calf, it's been described as like being kicked in the back of the leg. And I've heard that described to me quite graphically on a number of occasions, runners who've suffered a more acute calf muscle injury. But you're going to get some sensation of discomfort, tightness, cramping, pain, sometimes sharp in the back of the calf, and that's going to be your body's way of telling you slow down, stop. So don't ignore those signs if you get them. And again, I'm not talking about the general muscular aches you get in the back of those hard-working calves after a run, after a hard workout. I'm talking about something that feels very different. There's often in one side, more than the other. So those are the symptoms. You're going to find it difficult to walk after a calf muscle injury. You're going to be limping a little bit. That calf's going to feel very tight and very sore. You may notice some swelling and bruising, though that isn't always there. You're going to find it very difficult, if not impossible, to do a heel raise on one leg, going up and down. That's going to be very hard for you to do, possibly quite painful, so don't do it. And it's generally going to be sore and uncomfortable. The next day you're going to get up, it's going to feel sore and painful as you walk around on it. So those are the sort of symptoms that you might have a calf muscle strain. Now it's just worth mentioning another cause of calf pain that is nothing to do with overuse or running exercise, and that's a deep vein thrombosis. Now, a deep vein thrombosis is when you have pain in the back of your calf, and it's not related to exercise, it's not related to any activity, it just comes on randomly. And classically, one of the possibilities is after you've been on a flight somewhere, and after the flight or during the flight you get some pain in the back of your calf. Now obviously that's something that needs to be, you need to get yourself down to your doctor, down to A&E, and get that checked. Often the calf will feel hot and will look a bit swollen. So I just wanted to mention that, because that's one of the sort of, that's one of our, what we call our red flags. So if somebody comes in with calf pain, there's no history of activity or overtraining, no previous history of injury, but you've perhaps been on a long flight or something like that, or there's a previous history of a deep vein thrombosis, which is basically a blood clot in the back of your leg, and obviously I'm going to be sending you to A&E and not giving you a load of exercises to do. So it's worth mentioning, because it is out there. It's not that uncommon. It can happen. But I'm going to switch back now to talking about about calf muscle injury. That's what we're here to talk about. But it's always important to be aware that there are other causes of calf pain. Another one to consider is if there might be referred pain coming, from higher up, perhaps in the lower back, some kind of nerve entrapment that might be causing pain. And part of my job as a podiatrist is, when you come in to see me, I'm going to do all these checks to make sure it is actually the calf muscle that's injured and not some other type of injury, so we don't go barking up the wrong tree and wasting our time treating something when we should be treating something else. So it's important to understand that there are other causes of pain in the back of the leg other than a calf muscle strain, so we'll just leave it there for now. So what are we going to do? This calf muscle is injured, you can't run on it, it's difficult to walk on it. So the first thing we've got to consider is that the calf muscle is injured, its ability to manage load, and if you watch the first video we talked about this, begins to shrink right down. And it shrinks right down to the point where even normal walking, normal activity is outside that safe zone of tolerance. So it's just hurting when you're walking around. Hopefully that won't last very long and you will soon be able to walk without too much pain and discomfort. But what we need to do straight away is reduce the amount of work that injured, weakened calf has got to do. So we need to unload it. By unloading it, we're going to temporarily and artificially increase its zone of tolerance so it doesn't hurt too much during normal daily activities. The best way to do that, and if you think of how the calf muscle works, is to get the heel up as to a higher height than your forefoot, than the front of your foot. And the best way to do that is wear a trainer with a high heel drop, where the heel is higher than the forefoot. So your heel goes up. You want about a good amount of heel underneath. Ideally something like about a 12mm heel drop initially, just to really get that heel up. And what that's going to do, if you think about the mechanics, is as the heel goes up, that slackens off the calf muscle, so it's not having to pull so hard as you're sort of moving along. So that's a really sort of effective and quick way of unloading it. If you really haven't got any trainers or shoes that have a higher heel, then that's when you can start to shove your heel lifts into the shoe to lift the heel up inside the shoe. Just make sure if you're doing that you put your heel lifts in both sides, otherwise you're going to be tilting over and you're going to give yourself a back problem. So we're going to unload the calf muscle by changing the dynamics of the shoe. The other way we're going to unload it is we're going to reduce our activity. We're going to be less to worry about. So initially it's walking is going to be uncomfortable, but that's going to get better. And when we're thinking about running, depending on the severity, if it's a minor strain, if it's just a little bit of tightness, a little bit of cramping, then maybe you can go out for a steady run. And I'm talking about zone 1, so conversational pace, not pushing it at all, just going out for a short run and just seeing what the tolerances are. And provided the pain's no more than about 3 out of 10 on a scale of 0 to 10, in a 24 to 48 hour period. So you go for a short run, you rest for 24 to 48 hours, you see what's going to happen to the calf. If it's not hurting more than about 3 out of 10, then it might be that you can just have that baseline of doing a little bit of running, so you can keep it conditioned, and just very gradually, while you're doing your strength and conditioning that's going to be coming on after that, you can very gradually increase your load through it, increase your running. It might be, of course, that the level of injury, you can't run it at all, and it's not wise to run on it. If even a very short run, almost a slow jog, is clearly overloading it, pains more than 3 out of 10, then you're going to have to think about low impact cross training that's not going to put too much strains with the calf. And cycling and swimming are ideal, although they obviously take longer to do. They're not as convenient as running, but at least you're keeping your cardiovascular system stimulated, and you're moving those muscle groups at the lower limb, and keeping everything cooking so you don't lose fitness while you're recovering. So if you're doing all those things and you're still struggling with the injury and it's not getting anywhere, that's when you need to see a suitably qualified health professional who knows about sporting injuries. Obviously I'm a sports podiatrist, and this is the sort of thing I do every single day of the week. I can absolutely help you with that. So if you tried all these things and the injury just keeps recurring, that's when we need to look at in a bit more detail about the loads going through the calf and managing those loads a bit more effectively, feeding in a structured strength and conditioning program, and also looking at the biomechanics of what's happening when you're running. We're looking at a lot of forefoot striking. But again, I'm jumping ahead of myself, and that's something I'm going to talk about in the next video, how I, as a sports podiatrist, can help you, and some of the things that you can do as a runner to reduce the risk of future injury. Prevention is always better than cure, and if you're watching this video out of curiosity, you've never had an injury, then the next video is going to be really useful for you as I talk about how you can prevent the injury from occurring in the first place. So I hope you find that helpful. Look forward to talking to you in the next video. Take care, and I will talk to you again soon. Bye for now.